Yeah.
Okay, I see the rest of our board. So it's 10 a.m. and I'm going to call the meeting of the select board to order, and I'm going to do a roll call attendance. Ms. Emke,
Here.
Mr. McLeod,
Here.
Mr. Leighton,
Here.
and Ms. Moore, I am here. In accordance with the requirements. Ooh. Sorry, everyone okay? In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel. I don't believe we're Facebook Live today because we are Zoom only, but it will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. Start off with announcements. I have one announcement. Lunenburg Water District. The Water District is currently doing a survey right now that will help shape decisions about the future of Lunenburg's drinking water. They're asking that all households complete this survey. It's not just limited to Water District customers, and we have shared the link to that survey on the town's website. Does any other members of the board? Do any other members of the board have any other announcements?
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I'm hearing some feedback. Perhaps if you could announce for folks that are not speaking to mute.
Sure. If everyone could please mute if you are not speaking. All right. I still have a few people that were getting some feedback. If everyone could please just check and make sure that you are muted if you are not speaking. Okay. All right, moving on to public comment. Is there any public comment from the public? I can't see any hands. Do we have any hands risen? Mr.
I
Tommy?
do not see any hands raised, Madam Chair.
Okay, any public comment from the board? Okay. Great. Seeing none. Jen, do we need to wait until 7:05 to do our first scheduled meeting?
No, you do not. No, it's not a public hearing, so you can go ahead. That time's estimated.
Okay, so our first presentation is from Josie Gilchrist on the Spring Vendor Fair, which is scheduled for May 30th at the TC Passio building. Josie, do you have a presentation or anything that you want to share, or are we just going to speak, or how would you like to proceed?
I just figured I'd speak and answer any questions about it.
Sure.
Mainly
Okay, I'll turn
because
it
I
over to
didn't
you.
want to do a presentation. Also, very happy that it's Zoom only tonight, and I'm glad that you're all home safe today. Everybody looks cozy and safe, and that makes me happy. My name is Josie Gilchrist. I'm the president of the Lunenburg Business Association. Our team put together the first annual Lunenburg Fair last year, the weekend of Mother's Day. The day started off a little bit rainy, but it ended up being a very big success. We heard a lot of positive feedback about it. For those that didn't attend, we had about 60 vendor tables. We had food trucks, a BMX show. We had a professional swords fighter that had a ring with foam swords. We had a clown. We had a face painter, petting zoo, hayride, you name it. We had a lot of fun things for the community to do. But the key word here tonight is going to be community, because that fair could not have happened, even though the idea came from the LBA. It could not have happened without the community's involvement. Largely, and a big shout out to the former recreation director, Angela, who helped me directly with the fair and kind of speaking for the town throughout that process. She was a great help in getting this going. I'm gonna miss her this year, but we're hoping to get this fair going on the town and as a town-wide holiday every year, pretty much. We're wanting to make this an official annual event, so that these meetings don't really have to happen in the future, other than just an update on how it went. The Lunenburg Business Association relies heavily on collaboration with other organizations such as the library, the senior or the adult activity center, the club Lunenburg Teen Center, and just the town of Lunenburg and the many departments and committees involved in this whole operation. As the former chair of the Master Plan Steering Committee, I heard a lot from the community about the need and the desire for more community-based town-wide events. And it just ended up being very good timing with the LBA board, Lunenburg Business Association board that we had at the time to push that forward. And with the town's collaboration, we were able to meet that need and heard a lot of really great feedback from the community, the attendees that came. It is a free admission event. The vendors have a fee associated with their vendor space, but the feedback we got from them was that it was one of the best events that they had attended. They all did very well because Lunenburg showed up despite the rainy half a day we had to kick it off. But really, we're meeting that need. The Lunenburg Business Association exists to support Lunenburg and surrounding town businesses and economic growth. A big part of that is creating events that put these businesses in front of the communities that they serve. And so with the Lunenburg residents' desire to have more public free events mixed with the town's desire to be more open and approachable, mixed with also our desire, the Lunenburg Business Association's desire to put these businesses in front of the communities that they serve, it just ended up being the perfect event to meet a lot of needs all at the same time. We had a lot of organizations outside of the little circle there surrounding TCP and around TCP, such as some Boy Scout troops. I don't know what they call their territory, I guess. They said that it was one of the best fundraising events that they've had. We had other organizations that were nonprofits have tables at the event too, that they were able to, educate people. They were able to fundraise. Overall, it was just really fun and really rewarding to see. But I would like the town of Lunenburg to own this event, like the government of the town of Lunenburg to own this event in collaboration with the LBA as we bring businesses and bring those attractions to the event every year. And that's really what I'm pushing for as the annual event, so that we don't have to go through this planning process every year. We can just have the Lunenburg Day holiday and count on this event happening. So that's my spiel, very quick. But are there any questions?
Sure. So I have a question.
Yeah.
You say having it hosted by the town. What would you envision the town resources that would be needed?
Mm-hmm. So the town would streamline the event process because the town would own the event. The town's insurance would cover the event. The event application really wouldn't exist on our end because we're just a support organization. We're trying to get those vendors to show up to the town's event. I'll speak a little bit about Angela's weight that she pulled through the Parks and Recreation Department. Because she was a part of that department, she really streamlined a lot of that process so that we could have that event. But the LBA just coming in by ourselves and saying, oh, we want to have this event, little old us that has, 40 members and not a very large income or not a large insurance policy, because we're a small organization, that almost makes the event impossible with just on our shoulders. The Leominster Economic Development Director came and spoke to the Economic Development Committee, which I'm also the chair of. I was absent that day, but I watched the recording and it was really insightful about how they handle these town events or these city events on their end. They have many like this, and they approach it the same way we do with seeking out business sponsors for any activity that requires a payment for them to show up, such as what Angela handled last year was the petting zoo. I believe the fee for that came out of the Parks and Recreation budget, but they were able to show up and charge per head for kids to come in and pet the animals. But the LBA simply can't cover that cost. The option is that the town either owns the event, and that takes that weight off of our shoulders to try to come up with that money, or the town takes the event and the LBA tries to facilitate some business to sponsor that vendor to show up. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm just thinking, I think these events are wonderful. I think my concern is the pull on town resources just with everything else going on. I'm not sure how much staff time, if any, that we have at this point. And I
It
can,
wouldn't be organized by the town because the LBA, I say that we just bring these businesses in, but really, when I say Angela and I are the ones that organized it, that was it. That put on that entire event. And we contacted all these other, resource organizations to partner. We reached out to them and we waived vendor fees for them to show up and add to the activities for the event. Like the clown showed up, we had a magician show up, and they were able to offer activities that we could promote. And so we waived the vendor fee. But I reached out to a lot of those people. There's really no organizational time that the town needs to offer, except that the town needs to own the event and say, all right, I didn't want to compete with, of course, the town meetings that happen in May. But I think it was every fourth Saturday in May was my idea to have like a Lunenburg Day. And like, we know that every year that day, the LBA is going to come in and work with maybe just a representative of the town to get this event rolling. Because we can count on that event happening every year. So what Angela did was she contacted the DPW and we were able to utilize one of their dumpsters to put the trash in at the end of the day. She contacted, I think, Chris Ruth, who organized a couple guys to set up town-owned chairs and tables for people that wanted to sit and just enjoy some of the activities throughout the day. And then also the use of the facilities, the restroom and TCP, which I know we're not going to be able to use in years in the future. This year we could, but it would just mean somebody stocking that restroom, which I understand that the town already has a facilities department that covers that anyways. So it's just utilizing what the town is already doing, but that we count on this event happening every year.
All right, Madam Town Manager, do you have any logistical questions before I ask the board if they have any questions?
This is the first that I'm really hearing of this request this evening. I have many, many questions. I don't think that they're best suited. I wasn't prepared for this ask tonight, frankly,
Sure.
and I don't think that they're best suited for this meeting. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Do any of other members have any thoughts or comments or questions?
Yes. I want to thank you, Josie, for coming and all the planning that you and the LBA do, all the different events. I know the trunk or treat's a big hit with all my kids too, but we enjoyed the most recent one too. I remember Chair Nazzulo actually being in the dunk tank. That was fun and exciting. My kids got to dunk them. But yeah, the events are great. I do like the idea of getting more of like the rec department involved that you mentioned, Angela. I think that would be a great fit. Obviously, we need a new rec director, but I think that could be something that we could try to promote potentially in the future, that the rec director can kind of help out with this a lot more too. I would be interested in how Leominster does it too, because I know they put on some great events. Is it their rec director? What part of their community runs the show on those events? I think that would be important to know, and we can kind of learn from their events as well. But I think it's something that we should continue. I think it's great for the community, great community building, and I'm glad you guys are putting on the events. And I know it's a lot of work, so I like the idea of collaborating with the town and trying to find a way that we can kind of keep it going.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Do any other board members have any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'll just say, I went to the event last year and I thought it was great. I was worried about the weather, but it ended up being fantastic. I guess I wasn't aware of the ask that was coming before us today, so I agree with town manager of, I think there's a lot of questions to follow up and get more details.
Yeah.
But the concept, I think based on last year's event, I would expect it to be, just getting better. And, but I think it's a longer discussion than we're prepared for tonight.
All right. Mr. McLeod, do you have any questions? Okay. Josie, do you know if have you spoken with anyone on the Parks Commission about this yet?
My direct contact has been Caesar Nizello. On that, just because Angela was my direct line to Town Resources for last year, and she has since moved on. But I mean, I spoke to Caesar about it and he thought it would be a good idea. But again, I totally understand needing more information, but it also is important to know that this event can be customizable to what the town can actually offer.
Okay.
It's not like, I mean, last year was our first thing that we did to that scale, and we learned a lot from it. And what that did was just encourage us to pursue it more. But I do think that time is of the essence with this event. I did open up vendor signups already, and I have over 50 vendors already signed up for May 30th. In understanding that I would potentially have to reimburse all of those vendors if the event does not take place. But that's the name of the game with markets like this, is that these people plan like a year in advance for where they're going and where they're setting up to be a vendor. So I wanted to start on that soon. I wanted to start this discussion and get it going as soon as possible. I guess it would be if this discussion on if we're making it an annual, Town of Lunenburg event, Lunenburg Day every fourth, Saturday of May every year. It will be a long discussion to try to get a lot of that information fixed, but I'm interested in kind of pursuing a more speedy discussion on the event this year.
Madam Chair, can I just, logistically, I'm not sure if you're aware, I know you're aware that Angela Clement is no longer working as Recreation Director and the position is unfilled. We've conducted interviews. This is a part-time position. Reality is that somebody, if they accept a position, may or may not be starting in the next couple of weeks. Our primary focus is going to be getting the beach open for the summer, and I don't know how much capacity for this year anybody that's brand new to the organization has coming on to assist. That's just the reality, unfortunately. I'm looking at the calendar, it's March 3rd, and we don't have a rec director in place. Their priority is going to be the beach and summer programming for the town.
And I'm not asking for town staff hours, to be very clear. I'm asking for the town to be aware that this event is happening every year and that the LBA will be organizing it and opening it up for town resources.
Oh, okay. Maybe I misunderstood. I thought you had said that we were going to be handling the applications and kind of triaging all the applications and coordinating with facilities and coordinating all of that, because if Angela was town resources, so anything that Angela was doing would be the new person, provided they take a position.
Angela and I worked very closely together. Every decision that either one of us made, we were making that decision together. So I understand the back end and I understand the staffing issue that the town has right now in the recreation department and other departments too. I understand the lack of bandwidth. And I am completely prepared to handle all organizational aspects of the fair. It's just that I don't want you all thinking that this is a LBA event. I want it to be a Town of Lunenburg event. I want it to be the Lunenburg Library, the Adult Activity Center, the Teen Center. I want it to be any other resource organization that want to take a piece of that pie, and let's make it happen annually.
So I would say, Josie, I think I like where your thinking is. I share the same concerns the town manager does of just because we're so late in the game. I think that if we wanted to move this to an annual town sort of hosted event, I think we're kind of too late. I mean, we're less than 2 months away to be switching that much of the responsibility to the town. Not saying it's not possible. I just have some concerns about it. I definitely support it. I think that I think especially with looking at the time here, I think we'll need to add this as another agenda item, especially once the chair, since you've been speaking with Mr. Mazzolo, you know, hearing kind of what his thoughts are, because I haven't had a discussion with him either. So I wouldn't want to, you know, say anything out of turn but
absolutely.
Yeah. And I really
Well, I guess
appreciate all of your efforts.
that's just my main thing, and as clear as I can be, I'm not asking for any staff of the town of Lunenburg or committee members to put their hours towards this event, because I learned so much from the last one. I have systems and processes in place to actually make the event happen. It's
Okay.
just that I want you all to own it and not the LBA.
So
Hello?
can I add a comment? I guess understanding, Josie, what the ask is of the town. When you say become a town event, the town owns it, what does that exactly mean? I think that's unclear to at least me. Because I heard actually mention of funding, which made me a little nervous. Insurance, I don't know what else.
Yeah, the insurance would be obviously a discussion that we need to have further. The LBA can look into getting a large event insurance policy going, but right now our insurance covers networking meetings. We cover the vendors that we have for this event. We don't cover all of those individuals coming onto town property. And I see Jennifer shaking her head.
Yeah, the insurance is actually the least concerning out of all of
Okay.
this.
Okay.
Okay, so that's really, when I ask for it to be a Town of Lunenburg event, I'm asking for it to be put up on the town website for the Town of Lunenburg to own it. So just in case I'm no longer the chair of the LBA, the town still owns this event. The residents and the organizations that depend on this event every year to generate growth, to generate getting in front of the community, they can depend on this event happening every year. That's it. As far as what I am asking from the town is that the town owns this event.
So
The
it's more
LBA
of a commitment that the town, you know,
supports it, and we don't have
insurance,
to
that we
have
support.
these meetings every year to then talk about this event over and over.
Did you mention something about funding though? Did I not hear correctly?
Yes. So last year, Angela pulled out of the Parks and Recreation funding for the event in areas such as porta potty rentals, which we learned from last year. We don't necessarily need that. So that's kind of gone. And if we can use the TCP restrooms, the Lunenburg Library allowed us to use those restrooms, that line item's gone. But she also ordered like a petting zoo, a dunk tank, yard games with the Parks and Recreation budget. And that's where this event can be customizable, because money doesn't just come out of nowhere.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm not
looking
asking for a budgetary commitment. I'm asking for collaboration on thinking outside of the box and making this event happen every year.
Okay. So Josie, I think with that, I will talk with the town manager tomorrow, and you know, when we can get you back in, when we have the full board to have these discussions.
Absolutely.
yeah, and I really appreciate you coming forward and all of the efforts that you put forth into these various different community events that you're involved in. So
Thank you. Thank you
really
for the
appreciate it.
time. And I'm always open to answer any questions, president@lunenburgbusinessassociation.com. I know it's a little confusing, but if for this event, if any communication can go to my LBA email, that would be preferable.
Great. All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
Josie.
much.
Thanks,
Have a good
Josie.
night. All right. Running a little bit behind, but the next item on our agenda is a public hearing for a Class 2 license application for Unique Motors Group USA Inc. located at 40 Summer Street. And if I could ask the clerk to read the public hearing notice.
Sure. Pursuant to Chapter 140, Section 58 of Mass General Law, the Lunenburg Select Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026 at 7:05 p.m. in the Bellata Meeting Room at Town Hall, 17 Main Street, Lunenburg, Massachusetts, on the application submitted by Unique Motors Group USA, Inc., doing business as Unique Motors for a Class 2 license for the sale of motor vehicles as provided for under Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 58. This license is to be exercised at the premises located at 40 Summer Street.
Okay. Madam Town Manager, do we need a vote to open the public hearing?
No, the reading of the public hearing notice formally opens the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, great. And I'm going to kind of pass it back to you, Madam Town Manager, if you want to open this for me. Do we have all the documents that we need? Is there anything that we're
Sure.
missing?
And I'm actually going to pass it to Melissa. I believe everything is completed. I know that there was one question about potentially a name change, but I think that that's been tabled for a future date and that everything in the packet is complete. Can you just confirm that, Melissa?
Yes, we received everything that we needed to. They registered their business certificate with the town of Lunenburg. They do have another location that's been successful in Leominster. And they also have an auto body shop in Fitchburg. But we did receive everything. The end of last week, there was mention of changing the entire corporation name, but I did let them know that we would basically have to start everything from scratch all over again.
And through you, Madam Chair, the repair shop that's going to be doing work for the entity as their own repair shop then?
Yes, it's our own business. So as always, it's doing the same thing.
Okay. And you are with, I assume you are a member
My
of
husband,
the-
yeah,
Yes.
he's here.
Hi, nice to meet you both. Okay, does anyone
Thanks.
from the board have any questions? Okay. Oh, Jen, if you're talking, you're muted.
Can we just get the applicant's name and address for the record, just
Oh,
a few
sure.
minutes?
Yeah, my name is Mary Jo Garcia and my husband,
My name is Eric Quintana.
and 706 Lancaster Street in Leominster.
Okay, and I don't believe I saw any questions. We have everything in order. With
I just-
that,
I would just give them an opportunity to describe a little bit what they're doing, a little
Oh,
free
sure.
publicity. And
Thanks.
just for the
Thanks, Jen.
viewers, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we are, me and my husband, Eric, owners of Unique Motors since 3 years ago. And this is a dealership that we dedicated to auto sales. And we are located in Leominster. We have a shop in Fitchburg, and we want to move to Lunenburg. We like the place, and we hope we are really happy to go to Lunenburg because I know that street, it's really, pass a lot of cars in there and a lot of people, and so we're happy to be there.
Great, thank you so much.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Just to confirm, you're keeping your business open in Leominster, you're just adding another location, or is Lunenburg replacing the Leominster?
Yeah, we're gonna move to Lunenburg.
Oh, you are gonna move, so, okay.
Yeah.
But the repair shop in Fitchburg remains.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the Class 2 license for the application for Unique Motors Group USA Inc. located at 40 Summer Street.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oop, did I lose connection? What does that mean?
Second.
Great,
Brian
thank-
seconded.
Okay, sorry, my connection keeps kind of going in and out a little bit here. Sorry about that. All right, with that moved and seconded, that is all approved. So to the go ahead, Jen, are you talking?
Nope.
Okay, sorry. To the applicant, I believe our office will reach out to you with next steps once we have everything signed.
So we just need a
Madam
roll
Chair,
call vote though.
we need, yeah,
Oh, okay, thank you guys, sorry.
that's okay.
All right, let's do a roll call vote. Mr. Leighton?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Ms. Emke?
Aye.
Mr. McLeod?
I,
And an aye for myself. And now with that, we have passed and approved the application.
Thank you so much, all.
Sure, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.
All right. Next on our agenda, we have a joint meeting with the Sewer Commission to appoint Alan Wilson to the commission. So I would ask the Sewer Commission Chair to call their commission to order. And please do a roll call vote as we just noticed.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Hello, everybody. Yeah, this is Brett Ramsden, Chairman of the Lunenburg Sewer Commission. I want to thank you all for letting us join you in a joint meeting so short and on such short notice. So I'm going to call the meeting, announce the meeting open and do a short roll call vote to make sure we have a quorum. I'm going to start with Scott Dahl.
Here.
Arthur Cadis.
Here.
And Dan Proctor.
Here.
And I am here, of course. Madam Chair, thank you very much. I'll let you take back over.
Sure. Is the applicant here with us tonight? No, I'm not sure.
I
if
believe he is.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. His name's Alan Wilson.
It's
Okay.
under Chip Wilson on this.
Yeah, otherwise okay. known
as Chip.
Okay. Hi, Chip. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in this position?
Yeah, I was just getting back to a post that
Sorry,
Scott had
Chip, I
posted.
think you might be logged in twice, so you've gotten a bit of a echo. I see your name on here twice.
Was that?
Still, like you might need to mute one of them or log out of one of them.
Well, I'm good at sewer, not at computers.
All right, try again.
Well, hold on, could be one of us. Just with the speaker. Let me
Are you-
mute.
There's two
You can
Chip
mute
Wilsons,
Ronnie.
so I think he's got one. Try that.
I can remove the second Chip Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
There we go.
All right, try again.
How's that? Any better?
Much
Yeah.
better, thanks.
Not good at computers. Yeah, I was just responding to a post that Scott had posted. You know, I'm a transplant to Lunenburg, been here about 10 or 11 years now, and did the coaching and everything else with the kids. Kids are getting older, so I still have some free time and some energy, and I kind of always figured I should probably be doing a little bit more with the town and volunteering my time and whatnot. And sewer was kind of just a good fit for me. And that's pretty much how I got here.
All right, to the chair of the sewer commission, have you guys had a chance to speak about this?
We have. We actually had Chip at our last meeting. We had a chance to ask his interest as you got that answer, but there's also, we found that he has a lot to offer. He's got a construction business where he deals a lot with sewer installation, not just in Lunenburg, but in many communities, which we find as certainly a positive. And we believe that, among other things, he could bring a lot to the table as a fellow commissioner. So we invited him the other evening to join us, and he said he'd like to.
Okay, does anyone from either board or commission have any questions
I just have a question about the term, the length of the term. I assume it's just, is it till the next election?
Correct, through the next annual town election.
Okay. So then a follow-up question for Chip.
Yeah, go ahead.
I assume you would want to stay or you would be interested in running for election to the sewer commission to extend beyond mid-May.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Sounded like they were kind of in need quickly,
Yeah.
and I was available, and I, like I
Mhm.
said, I'm more than willing to get involved and, donate my expertise and my time to the town. So,
Great.
I'm not familiar with, I believe they told me it was maybe a 2 or 3 year term later on, but, that's fine with me.
Great.
It's not
Well,
a
thank
huge
you.
time commitment, a couple meetings a month, they said, so that certainly doable for me.
Madam Chair, through you to Chip. So this term would expire at the May annual town election, which is it's the short term, May 16th of this year. However, this coming Monday is the town caucus, which is a method by which folks can get on the ballot without having to obtain signature papers. And so if you were interested in running for the full seat, that would be, or the seat that opens beyond May 16th, the easiest way to go and get on the ballot would be on the caucus next Monday, and you can talk to the town clerk for some follow-up details on that.
It's definitely much
Okay.
easier.
Mhm.
Yeah, it should be Monday night, 7 p.m. at the middle high school auditorium.
Okay,
I can help you with it, Chip. I did it last year.
sounds good.
All right, if the select board members have no further questions, I'd be looking for a motion.
I'll
Uh,
make a motion to, what are we doing? Appoint Ellen Wilson to the sewer commission, term ending May 16th, 2026.
Second?
Okay, this will be a roll call vote. Mr. McLeod,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Aye.
Miss Emke,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. And then I will ask the sewer commission chair to call a vote of his members.
Yes, let's make our vote. Can I get a motion for a vote regarding Chip Wilson as a new commissioner?
I'll make a motion to accept him as new commissioner.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion that's been seconded. Dan Proctor,
Aye.
Scott Dahl,
Aye.
Art Cadis,
Aye.
and I for myself. The motion passes. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, with that, Chip, you have been appointed, so it sounds like you've got some contacts there. Well, that will be in touch with you, and we thank you so much.
Sounds good.
Thanks. And then,
All
Mr.
right.
Chair, if you can just call for an end of your meeting.
All right, can I get a motion to end this sewer commission shared meeting?
I'll make a motion. to adjourn. Sorry.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion that's been seconded. Scott Dahl,
Aye.
Arthur Cadis,
Aye.
Dan Proctor,
Aye.
and I for myself. Thank you, Lunenburg. Thank you very much. Everybody, have a great evening.
Congrats, Chip.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
thanks, Chip.
Congrats. Have a good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chip.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Moving along, our next item on our agenda is a presentation by John Bowen, who is the chair of the Trust Fund Commission, on the annual town meeting articles proposed by the commission. And I see Mr. Bowen is here.
I am here.
Okay. Madam Town Manager, do we have presentations to share on this one? Sorry, you're muted again.
John, did you have a PowerPoint or just the documents that you had sent
No,
over?
so what I did was instead of the PowerPoint, I just did the documents.
Okay,
So,
you have the documents in your folder.
yeah, okay, yeah, I sent it to everybody last week so that everybody had it. I just have one additional update, which I did send, I think Monday. And
That's it. That's in their folder, yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then I just have one additional legal parameter, which that was a discussion I actually had with the town council on the bylaw. That's
Okay,
the only
so-
thing you probably don't have is just my summary of that.
Okay, so why don't I turn it over to you to give us the presentation? If there's anything that you want me to share, if you just want to tell me the title of it, I can always pull it up and share.
That'd be great. So if do you want to go over the warrant article for the bylaw? That's going to be a little longer than the warrant article for the funds.
Whichever way you prefer is fine with me.
Okay. Why don't we do the appropriation for legal expenses related to trust fund cypre proceedings? You should be able to see that.
John, do you know what the name of the file is? I'm looking for here.
Yeah, hold on.
Or John?
Yeah, I have to dig it out.
VTFC warrant article,
The PDF?
cypre appropriation presentation.
Yep. Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
Sure, just give me 1 second to pull it up and share it.
I have my folder open, so I could have popped it up.
Oh,
I mean, I don't know if you do you want me to pop it up?
sure. Yeah, that way that you can pull up what you want to have pulled up.
Okay, all right,
Yep.
that's fine. All right. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Do you need me to blow it up?
Yeah, if you want to zoom in on it a little bit, that'd be great.
All right. Here's my that's interesting.
John, if you click on view up at the top.
Yeah, I got all these windows popping open,
Yeah,
right? I got
close
it.
it.
Here it is. There it
Yeah.
is. That's what I'm like looking at it because this is I think this is in Google.
And then full screen. Yeah,
Okay. There you go. Can everybody see it now?
it didn't help.
It didn't help. That's why I like Word.
That's okay.
All right, well, I'll read it and, hopefully you guys all have it in your emails, so you can follow along. This appropriation for, my name's John Bowen. I'm the chairman of the Board of Trust Fund Commissioners here in Lunenburg. I'm the only one here. Obviously, two of us being here would be a quorum. We hadn't had a 48-hour notice for a joint meeting, so. In any case, I've been given permission to be able to present this. These have already been ratified by our board for submission sometime in January. This is the appropriation for legal expenses related to the trust fund cypre proceedings. The warrant article reads to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $14,252.39. I will answer that. I watched your select board meeting last week. From the general fund for the payment of legal expenses as advised by town council necessary for the research, analysis, legal drafting and filing of cypre petitions in the Massachusetts Probate and Family Court, Worcester Division, for the purpose of correcting and updating the terms of certain trust funds so that they may lawfully and effectively serve their intended charitable purpose, including but not limited to the American Legion Poor Trust Fund, which is named in the ledger as American Legion Poor, the Post 283 Legion Trust Fund in the ledger, it's Lunenburg Post number 283, which presently restrict use of funds to members of American Legion Post number 283, an organization that is no longer active or recognized national or state post of the American Legion. thereby preventing the funds from being used for the benefit of Lunenburg resident veterans. And the Worthy Poor Fund, highlighted by ledger name Worthy Poor Income, whose existing terms require modification to confirm with the modern structure of public assistance, as the responsibility for the care of the poor is no longer a municipal function and was assumed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the early 20th century under state public welfare laws. Said appropriation being for the purposes of restoring lawful, practical, and charitable use of these trust funds through judicial approval consistent with donor intent, or to take any other relative action thereto. So in this, you'll notice that I'm still sharing. Can everybody see this? Okay, good. So I'm not going to go through and read this whole thing. I did submit this to you. I'm going to give you a brief rundown and overview. I hope everybody had an opportunity to read it and, formulate any questions. But I'm just going to give you a quick overview. The other one's additionally as long because it's a bylaw proposition. But this one also has some parameters in this. The purpose of this memorandum that I created here is the legal authority supporting the warrant article of the appropriation of the general fund to fund legal services required to pursue cypre relief in the Mass Probate and Family Court. The purpose of the cypre proceedings is to restore certain charitable trust funds to lawful and effective use where the current terms are impossible or impractical to carry out as written. Now, the reason why the warrant article also says, including but not limited to those two funds, is because we have 6 funds of which we have trusteeship, and some of the funds need to be corrected. And so we put those 2 on there just to kind of highlight the American Legion Poor, which is one, which is a specific type of fund based on its age. The Worthy Poor Fund is another type of fund based on the age of the fund and how that gets handled by the state. And so I'll address that as I go on here. The Massachusetts Uniform Trust Code and cypre. So I'm just going to kind of give you a quick overview. Under 203E, which is the Uniform Trust Code in Massachusetts, okay, courts can modify charitable trusts, okay, when the purpose has become unlawful, impractical, or impossible to achieve, or even wasteful for that matter. So cypre allows the court to redirect the trust property to a purpose that's as near as possible to its original charitable intent. This is judicial in nature, and it has to be exercised by the probate and family court. Now, that is for basically used for multiple reasons with regard to the funds that we have. However, for the most part, this is going to be applied to funds that are younger than 20 years. So there is a PC form, which is a public charities form, that an administrative cypre can be handled through the Attorney General's office. It does not need to go to probate court, and that's an administrative function as opposed to a court function. The court function is obviously more expensive than the administrative function. Just as a quick understanding, I did meet with Adam Costa, and I know that he's on a retainer to handle some things. He did say that he was handling some of these funds on that retainer to be able to address the public charity issue. And I thank you, Jen, for that. For us to get together the time that we did and be able to get him the information to be able to put that forward. So the court aspect of it is where the money comes in. So just to let you know, we have the authority as trust commissioners with the custody and management of the funds. Any funds given or bequeathed to the town for the benefit of its inhabitants. Okay, so we have a fiduciary responsibility to administer this fund strictly in accordance only with the donor's intent, nothing outside of that. So the board does not have authority to unilaterally alter or modernize a trust purpose. So when the trust term can no longer be fulfilled, judicial approval is required. So the AG's office has supervisory authority over all charitable trusts and is a necessary party to any of these proceedings in the court. So obviously they're going to be informed about the court proceedings themselves. The limitations of the Attorney General's, just as I had explained, they basically have a separate set of forms that can be filed, like I said. They do not authorize changes to donor restricted purposes, though. So if a purpose has to change, it's going to have to go into the court. So they can make an adjustment to, small things, but they can't make adjustments to large changes. You know what I mean? Which would be, I'll just give you an example. We have a sidewalk fund that was for sidewalks that are within, I think 100 feet of town hall. I believe that's, this was Article 16 in 1931 from the record of the town, to see if the town will vote to accept and forever keep and be responsible for the sum of $5,000, the interest at 4%, $200 a year, to be spent on the public grounds and sidewalks within 1 mile of the center of town. The said sum being a legacy to the town under the will of Luther Howard, and to be accepted as a memorial to his mother, John Howard, Mary Caldwell Howard, and that was approved by the Finance Committee. So that was in 1931. Well, we have Chapter 90 money that takes care of sidewalks. So within 1 mile of town. So there's really not a use for that. And we have grounds, which comes out of town tax money, which is comes out of facilities. So that's already been allotted. So a lot's changed over the years. That fund being more than 20 years old, we can try to put before the Attorney General. However, it may have to go to probate court because it can't fix sidewalks and grounds within 1 mile of the town, because the town already gives tax money to be able to pay for that, which I believe comes, most of it, from either a grant from the state or it's money that the state pays for the roads. In any case, let's just continue. Application to the affected trust funds. The Legion Port Trust Fund and the 283 Trust Fund restrict benefits to members of a Legion Post 283. Because that post no longer exists as an active or recognized organization, trust can't be administered as written, even though the underlying charitable intent of the benefit of veterans remains clear. So it does say for Lunenburg veterans. However, okay, it still lists Post 283, which does not exist. Now, this may be able to be handled and managed by the Attorney General's office. They might say, okay, well, the post doesn't exist anymore. There's verification that the post doesn't exist anymore. We can take that wording out of there, and it doesn't really change. It's still going to be for Lunenburg veterans. There is a Veterans Poor Fund for the Legion that is over 20 years old. You can do that through Cypre. There's one from 2013. You can do that one through the Attorney General's office, Public Charities Office. But the one from 2013, which we have, which is the Legion Poor Fund from 2013, which is Lunenburg Post 283 in the ledger, that one you have to bring to court because it's under 20 years old. Those are the parameters. 20 years and older, you could do an administrative action to see if they'll accept your changes. Otherwise, you have to go to probate court. Or if they're less than 20 years, you must go to probate court. You cannot use the Attorney General's office. So the Worthy Poor Fund was created at a time when towns were responsible for operating poorhouses and providing direct relief to the indigent. Over time, Massachusetts shifted responsibility of public assistance from municipalities to statewide public welfare systems. As a result, the original method of administrating the Wealthy Poor Fund is no longer practical under modern law. There's another fund that's been depleted that never should have been depleted. It's the Susan Howard Fund. That's in addition to this one, this Worthy Poor Fund. They come from the Howard family. And that one ended up getting depleted back in the 70s. Or the early 80s, and it wasn't supposed to be. And I have some documentation on that, but my board will be discussing that over the next couple of months on how to recover that. But this is for the Worthy Poor Fund from the same family, the Howard family. Need for general fund appropriation. The individual donor trust accounts affected by this warrant article do not contain sufficient funds to cover legal costs associated with pursuing Cypre relief. In addition, using restricted trust assets to finance litigation intended to alter the governing terms of those same trusts would raise fiduciary concerns, because the Cypre proceedings are undertaken to restore lawful usability and preserve donor intent. The associated legal costs must be borne by the town through an appropriation from the general fund. Reason being is, in that fund that we're talking about with the American Legion Poor, okay, that fund has 14,400. That's the number that I used. So 14,252.39. Okay, that's the American Legion Poor Fund. The Lunenburg Post 283 Fund has $10,110.91. Herein lies the problem. The donor's intent was not to have the money used to be able to manage the future of the fund's organization. The town accepted the donation. The town bore the responsibility of being trustee for the management of those funds and have given the management to the care of the Trust Fund Commission by statute. So with that, because the funds did not set a parameter to be able to care for the cost of the fund, the town bore it because the town had a commission. Just to give you an idea, the Trust Fund Commission has been around for a long time. It has a very long history. This town created a trust fund by the record in 1941. They already had one. They just didn't have one active. As you see with this board here, of which I am chairman, this Trust Fund Commission has not been properly operated since Miss Padula was here, probably in the 70s. And that's from the record information that I have. That being said, our board has taken steps to be able to make sure that the board was organized, to be able to have people have an application process for filling out an application to receive funds and things like that. So in that, we've created a policy to be able to give these funds out and to give them out fair and equitably to the people who are deserving of it. Now, we have some funds. We have a gazebo restoration fund. We have a sidewalk fund, like I had mentioned, okay? And then we have Worthy Poor Fund, American Legion Poor, Lunenburg Post 283. The management of these funds falls on the town. The amount of money that I'm asking is a small amount of money to be set aside only when and until and after administrative action is done, which is the lawyer is on retainer. So he can do it on his retainer. When I talked to him, he said some of the stuff, he says he's on retainer, but there's investigations that might have to be done. There's some detail that needs to be raised. They probably have to look into the probate court to be able to find documentation with regard to wills and things like that, because the court's going to require that under Cypre. You know, what's the due diligence and what do you have? I've been able to find a lot of stuff. But obviously I'm not trained like a law firm, okay, or an investigator. So doing it right the first time is the best thing to do. The money is only basically as needed, and I'm asking for that money so that it can be just set aside. And if it's not used, it goes back into the general fund. And who would that come under? The purview and authority, which would be the town managers. So she would say, this is how much money we're going to set aside for that. She's going to look and say, this isn't a cost that I think is that we're willing to spend to be able to get that done. Do you know what I mean? But the money's there up to a certain amount. So she can say, nope, that's too much money. Can we do it for this? Can we do it for that, to be able to get it to where it needs to be? And this is where the collaboration with the town manager comes in with regard to the money. The problem is, I could ask the town manager to take it out of the general fund on her own, but that would be putting her at risk of using the town's money, of which she's been given stewardship over, as opposed to asking the town to set the money aside, let the town make the decision for the benefit of these trust funds for the people who live in town. And then that way that relieves the town manager from any responsibility to it, because the town agreed that, yes, Jen, you can spend up to this amount, but be a prudent, be a prudent manager of the money and get the best bang for our buck. And that's basically the overall outline of that particular request in the warrant article. And I'd be willing to take any questions.
All right. Does anyone on the board or the town manager have any questions? on this warrant article. Go ahead, Mr. Leighton.
Thank you. Thank you for your work on this, John. I did have a question about legal fees. Was there any research done on how much the legal fees could be on going through
Jen.
this process?
I'll answer that. So I think if I can just kind of characterize some of the conversations that I've had on my own with town council as well. So there's some funds that the Worthy Poor, for example, I've actually shared that document now in your folder, so you can see the old Worthy Poor. That is more straightforward in that the intent can no longer be accomplished by the plain read of the language. And I've already authorized town council to begin to work on that with the Trust Fund Commission. I disagree based on my conversations with council about the American Legion Poor Fund. It specifically states that the use of that one, hold on one second, is for all funds must be used for the benefit of current or past members of American Legion Post 283 or Lunenburg resident veterans. In my conversation with town council, because that original intent can still be accomplished, it's not a good candidate. In terms of the costs associated, and I think that this is why Mr. Bowen might have picked the original number, the $14,000 number. The conversation was when there are some trusts that we don't have the original documentation for. And the amount of research that would be necessary in obtaining that documentation in order to bring it to the court may exceed the total amount of funds contained within the trust. So I said, for example, spending $14,000 to obtain $14,000. Unfortunately, I think John might have taken that a little bit literally, but
well, I did
nonetheless,
at first, but I realized that
Yeah.
that was a good and round number to work with to be able to be a steward over whatever we can get done. We can get done if we have to do it a little at a time.
And I think in talking to, after you spoke with Attorney Costa at his office hours, I also had a meeting with Attorney Costa later that day. And we dialogued a little bit that it's really unknown how much legal fees could be. It seemed in his opinion that it was not worth pursuing based on the potential costs as compared to the total fund sum.
Well, that was my concern, is like, how much money are we going to spend for how much is actually going to be in these funds? I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth on how much is actually in there versus what the legal fees will be.
I just wanted to, if I can just interject, Brian. So in Ms. Town Manager, so if you read the second line down where it says resident veterans, it also has a veterans must be eligible for membership in the American Legion. So that would mean that those people would have to go to the American Legion somewhere else and become members, and they can't. That's a parameter that needs to be changed, because how are we going to know? They would have to provide us with documentation saying, I'm eligible for the American Legion. Could I get some money for some help? So that restricts us from being able to help those veterans based on that one statement. So I have to disagree, which I agree, but disagree. I agree that resident veterans, it does say, but it also says they must be eligible for membership in the American Legion. The only way for us to get that is they make an application to the American Legion, bring that to us, and then that confirms them, but we don't have an American Legion post here. So that creates a problem for us to be able to be able to be the trustee over the donor's intent. The donor's intent says they must have a membership, be eligible for membership in the American Legion. How do we prove that? We can't
Madam
prove that
Chair,
without the American Legion.
Through you, I'm not aware enough about American Legions. Are you restricted from joining American Legion post in a neighboring community or a nearby community?
So with my
So he-
research, I believe that it's to be eligible for the American Legion, you must have served at least 1 day of federal active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces since December 7th, 1941, and hold an honorable discharge or currently be serving.
Well, That's not what this says here. It says eligible for membership. So I've talked to the American Legion, the National and the State American Legion, and they said that there's an entire application process that they have to go to become a post member.
Well, to be a member, but to be eligible for
Eligible,
member, I
yeah.
think is different than being a member.
Possibly, we could look at that as the eligibility and find the minimum eligibility legal requirements of the Legion. But again, I'd have to get that information from the American Legion and find out what the minimum eligible requirement is. So that's a key point. Thank you, Brian. So that's just so that you're aware. So the Legion Post itself also allows other disbursements for qualified programs within the town that the money can be used for that would benefit or enhance veteran service programs, like special veteran celebratory functions. It could be used for, you know what I mean, a number of things, you know, on holidays. Yeah, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, July 4th. Do you see what I'm saying? So the money can be, the money has its opportunity to be able to be used. Okay. But my concern with this one is that it's 2013. As far as the American Legion Poor Fund is concerned, like Jen said, that there's not a lot of information that we have on them. I've been getting information. I know what the American Legion Poor Fund was used for. So I don't know if you remember, but after World War II, I think it was up near West Street. They built all those small homes specifically for veterans coming back from the war, and they divided up all that land, and that's why they have little parcels all up in there. And that was divided up for people that were veterans to be able to move into those properties that came back from World War II. So, so at the time, I don't know when the Legion Poor Fund was, but the last record that I have that I've been able to find was from the 70s that the Legion Poor Fund did exist. So that's basically what we're asking for. We're asking for the money to be set aside in the event that there are things that need to be taken care of. And then the money is somewhat available to us to be able to access. And obviously, Jen's been doing the footwork with the attorney on some things, but there are other, that's why it says not limited to. We highlighted 2 funds. We have 6. There may be some legal parameters in these other funds moving forward that we want to be able to resolve, because if this money has not been given out since the 70s. Nobody's given a dime out. I have $85,000 I can give to poor people. I can, people can apply, veterans. There's $40,000, $35,000 here for veterans in town to help them. Somebody, for whatever cause or reason. We put a whole policy in place for this, and an application that's been approved, and a policy to be able to do this, to make determinations to give this money out, because there hasn't been any. There hasn't been a policy. So we're trying to move this forward by having the opportunity to have access, that if a little bit is needed, we don't have to say, Jen doesn't have to make the decision. The town has to make the decision. That's the point. The point is, does the town want to be able to give money out to help people? If so, we need a little buffer to be able to have these things managed, because they've been mismanaged. I'll just give you one comment that I received when I was elected to this board. I got a phone call from a former select person, and he said, well, the trust fund only meets once a year. What does it really do? Okay. And I was like, what does it really do? It's a trust. So obviously that's a person who sat on your board for previous years, who made that comment, who had no clue that this has not been functioning right for 70 years. I mean, it's a long time. And we need to get it functioning right. We need a little buffer to be able to take care of this portion of the management and allow the town manager to have the discretion with the attorney. She's also an attorney, so it's easy for them two to talk to each other than it is for me to talk to her about the law. Do you see? So that's where her expertise comes in. Can we? Is it financially feasible, or do we need more? but we have a target that if we only need a little, we have a little to be able to use. And it goes to benefit veterans and poor people in town that are suffering. So I think that the town would be more interested, okay, in making the decision on their own on whether or not they want to help veterans or they want to help the poor in the community. I don't think that it's a decision that our board should be making on I support or I don't support. I think that it should be supported because the benefit is going to people in need.
Okay, is there any other questions for Mr. Bowen on this article? Go ahead, Ms.
Yeah.
Dempsey.
So John, I want to repeat some things as I heard them because my brain's still on vacation.
Sure.
And you talk fast.
I do. I'm sorry.
So if I can boil it down to simple things that I caught and just tell me if I'm correct. So there are some funds that the original intent cannot be met for various reasons. How those
That's correct.
funds, where they go, who they go to, and why. There is, it does matter how old the fund is. If it's 20 years or more, changing the use of that fund can be done administratively.
Could be. I mean, obviously depends on, there's certain parameters. The Attorney General's office could say, no, you can't change that. So they have an entire form. It's called the PC-15, and Jen has it and the lawyer has it, and they're looking at it, they're reviewing it. And they say that you can change this, change this, change this. The one thing you can't change really is the donor's intent. But if the donor's intent was, I want this money to go and build a school, well, you can't. Why? Because that money comes from different funds. Like, I want that money to go and fix a sidewalk. Well, you can't. That goes to a different fund. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I'll come back to the sidewalk because I had a follow-up question on that.
Sure.
So less than 20 years, it has to go to court to change.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No choice.
So which funds, I've heard, I think 3 funds mentioned, American Legion Poor, Worthy Poor, and Post 283. Are those
Post 283 is the one that has to go before, because American Legion Poor has been around for longer than 20 years. I have record. And J.M. Howard's Sidewalk and Grounds Fund is older than 20 years. Worthy Poor Income is older than 20 years. Gazebo Restoration, I'm still trying to figure out how old that was, but I'm assuming that Gazebo Restoration Fund was created for the old gazebo, which now sits on the corner of Main and Oak Ave in the guy's yard. And the new gazebo is where the gazebo is in the center of town. So, that's a restoration fund. I haven't found a lot of information with regard to when that fund was created, but there is $13,000 in that fund.
So am I now hearing there could be 4 funds that you want to follow up on? And
like I said,
covered?
first we're going to check, obviously, we're going to check with the Attorney General's office on all the funds that are older than 20 years. But on the fund that is less than 20 years, which is the Post 283 fund, okay, which Jen says that, and I agree with you, Brian, on that it does say that eligible. We'd have to figure out exactly what that specific eligibility was actually included in the policy, what an American Legion eligibility would be.
It sounded like Brian just recited that.
Yeah. He did, but I have to get a document from the American Legion. I can't put it in a policy without having their document. I can't just Google it. Do you know what I mean? I have to literally get it from them on their letterhead that says, this is your eligibility requirement, and then I can put it into the policy that says, here's the information that confirms the information that's in the policy. Otherwise, we're all going to get into legal trouble.
So I'm trying to understand how many funds we're looking. I mean, $14,000. How long would that money be set aside for?
It would have to be requested annually, or it could be returned back. Okay, and that's why I said it would be at the behest of the town manager with the lawyer in evaluating the cost for the direction for the correction. So it would be the town saying, we're going to set this aside so the town manager has some money to work with correcting any problems that are going on with these funds and to get them corrected. And if it goes over that amount, then the town manager can say, it's going to cost more than this, it's going to cost more than that. you know, we're gonna need a larger buffer area of money to be able to make the corrections necessary so that the money can be given out to the people. And if that's necessary, then another warrant article can be put in for the additional cost, but at least we have something set aside. And if it doesn't get used in that fiscal, it can go back into the general fund. And, you know, with whatever gets done, but at least we have some management to work with. And like I said, the town, when it takes these donations, if the fund, okay, does not say you can use the money to management under chapter 203E as trustees, we can't let you use it money in that fund to manage the fund unless the person who gave the money said there's management of the money. This isn't like your home trust. This is a trust given to a municipality, which means every dollar goes to the people of the municipality, not to the management of the fund itself. The town, when it takes the responsibility for the management of the fund. And what I'm telling you is this town has neglected this board, commission, and the funds in it. Whether they knew about it or not, it's been neglected. And we need to fix it. And the only way to fix it is to have a buffer so that we can use something to work with something. And look, I understand $3 million, you know what I mean, is what we're looking at, you know, in this year's budget. I get it. Okay. The problem is the people that are suffering on this are poor and veterans. That's what I'm looking at. And this money has never been given out. And I'll just give you an example. In 2017, there was a commission gave a $2,700 loan out, a loan, and never went back to collect the loan or to see if they could collect the loan or convert it to a grant because there was no commission that followed. And that money now has to be collected or looked at to be collected. And that burden falls on us. And this is what I mean. And that's where my next warrant article will come into play in a segue. But for the most part, that's, you know, that's where we're at. We can't fix something unless we have the town backing the management a little bit. Even like, that's why I'm not asking for a lot. And I did take that number out of context. That is correct. And when I talked with the lawyer last week, he goes, John, that's the fund money. I go, that's what I thought. And that's what I thought it was from. But the reason why I put that in there is because I was guesstimating that $15,000 would be enough to at least get some investigation done, or at least the filing costs. And when the lawyer said that he's on a retainer for a certain amount to be able to handle a certain amount, I don't know what that is. Town manager does. How much of that retainer he can use to be able to do the work, and how much is going to require that outside. Again, that's going to be on an hourly rate. That's the problem. Everything's going to be on an hourly rate. That's any investigation. That came from.
Yeah, so it again, I'll come back to how many funds we're looking to investigate. It sounds like there's some open questions, right, around eligibility for American Legion, town council's opinion on the post 280, was it? I can't remember which.
It's okay, post 283, yeah.
That it may be, we may be okay with the original intent. We may still be able to, you know,
well, the
dispense
problem
funds.
is like the Worthy Poor Income Fund. The Worthy Poor Income Fund says for people in poor houses. So Nathaniel Day, who donated that money, he donated money to a number of towns, to Shirley and to Groton. And Nathaniel Day intended that the principal sum of $1,000 be given to the town of Lunenburg, permanently invested. It said by the selectmen or overseers of the poor. Only the income generated from that investment is to be used and solely to improve the condition and well-being of the worthy poor, including those in the town's poorhouses. This is what it says right in his
Yeah.
declaration.
But that one's over 20 years, so it could be looked at administratively.
Well, but it says to
Right.
go to poorhouses. Okay, so again, okay, poorhouses were taken over in 1919 by the Public Welfare Act. So again, you know, like I said, is that there's specifics that the Attorney General might reject. And if the Attorney General rejects it, it's going to have to go to probate. That's the point. And we
Yeah.
want to be able to solve the problem when the problem comes, instead of put it off to another day, because this money goes to benefit residents that are in need. And that's an emergency as far as I'm concerned. And when you have all this money and you've had it available for 50 years and you're not giving it out, okay, because you don't know what the board is doing, because the board isn't doing anything, then there's a problem. And people in town are suffering as a result of this money sitting here.
Yeah, I don't know if 14, I mean, now I understand where the 14,000 number came from, but I don't have a feel as to whether that's an appropriate amount to set aside for the anticipated legal work or not. So that's kind of where I'm thinking, but before I forget, I want to touch on the sidewalk fund.
Sure.
Yes, chapter 90 can be used for sidewalks, but it can be used for a whole host of things. And if we have a fund to cover sidewalks, why don't we use that fund and use chapter 90 for some other?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
I
it's
wouldn't get
used,
rid of the sidewalk fund, say, oh, we can cover that with chapter 90.
that's
Yes, we
correct.
could, but
But here's the thing. So when the fund was created in 1903, what kind of sidewalks did you have? And the court is going to look at, and the attorney general is going to look at the age of the fund, what they were referring to as far as a sidewalk. They're not going to say today's sidewalk. They're going to say yesterday's sidewalk, which is probably a boardwalk or gravel. Do you see my point? It's, you know, you're not looking what the attorney general is going to look at. They're going to look at the donor's intent. What was the donor's intent? Well, when did the donor die? That will tell you the intent. The
how
donor
old is
died,
that sidewalk fund?
yeah,
How-
1901.
And
Oh,
you're
I'm
saying
sorry,
we can't-
1931,
You're
1931.
saying we can't use that for current sidewalk maintenance, repair, whatever?
Well, the donor's intent is for sidewalks that were there in 1931, okay? Not sidewalks that we have today that are basically covered almost by, I believe it's federal money that's given to the state that's handed to the town. And it's ADA required, which goes through an entirely different board. This is a time when there weren't any of those programs in place to be able to protect people, and nobody cared if there was a sidewalk. Sidewalks were created usually by the person who owned the property, built the sidewalk along their property.
So
And
you're
that's what
saying, you're saying that, yes, I understand, I hear you, sidewalks have evolved. Yeah, so have roads, so have cars, so have everything else. You're saying that that sidewalk fund, none of that money in that fund can be used towards current day sidewalks?
Well, that's the thing. That's what I was talking about the evolution of time and coming up to meet modern standard. Okay. You have to be able to meet the modern standard to change it. You know what I mean? What with the sidewalk are you going to use it for? Are you going to fill cracks? Do you see my point? Like what with the,
But
what
I'm
with the
asking, do you
ground?
know that for sure today? Do you know that for sure that
I
we
know
have to
exactly from my
dive into the sidewalk fund?
yes, from my research of what I've read, the first thing the attorney, and when I spoke with the Attorney General's Office of Public Charities, they said that the first thing that they look at is when was the fund created and what's changed to get it up to modernization. Like there are no poorhouses. So how do you modernize that? I gave $1,000 in 1905 to poorhouses. How do you modernize that today? There's no poorhouses. The towns aren't responsible for the poor, the state is. So now you can't meet the donor's intent because there are no poorhouses.
Yeah, that's a very different situation, I think, than the sidewalk evolution.
Well, we could tell, like I said, is we're going to take the luck of the draw and go with the Attorney General's office, of course. But the reality is what are we going to do after that? So they say no, and then we have another fund that's restricted still because it didn't get fixed. Like I said, his whole point is that the town is responsible for the management of the funds. And that's what we need to look at as the sound basis here. If you're going to accept a trust from somebody else, or somebody wants to leave money and they're not saying that they're going to pay for the management of that fund, okay, as trustees and under the Uniform Trust Code in Massachusetts, the donor's intent is what is done. We have management of it. That's only to hand it out. That doesn't give us the authority to spend money from it to be able to handle it and manage it. This is not like a trustee that you get on your personal family trust. This is a municipal donation. This is not, this is a donation to the town. This is totally separate than a personal trust document. And that comes under, like I said, that comes under chapter 807. That comes after section 807 of chapter 203E. That's trustees' powers and duties of delegation and so on and so forth. It's under chapter 203E. So that tells us what we can do as a municipal trustee over donations that are given to the town. I mean, you guys have it as well to some extent to donations that are given to you in trust. You're responsible under the same trust document. Not as so much as a gift, somebody gives you a gift, but as a trust, you know, with its parameters. Fiduciary responsibility falls on the treasurer for the expenditures and so forth. And that's under, I think, section 54B of 203E. That's the treasurer, making sure that everything meets the standard. And that's why I said, this is for us to be able to be organized. The town owes these people an opportunity to receive a benefit, and it's going to cost a little bit to give people who are in need. Everybody talks about, I don't want a 2.5 override, I'm in need. Well, what about these people that for 50 years haven't got anything? That could have got something. And then there's some people in need here who say, I don't want an override. Well, we're here. And we're one of the only commissions that can actually solicit trust funds from people. We can sit there and put an advertisement in the paper and say, donate your will to the town of Lunenburg from the Lunenburg Trust Fund Commission. We can do that by law. You can't, but we can. So we can ask people to give money. We need money for our school. Donate your will. Do you know what I'm saying? Put your scholarship here and let us help.
All right, Mr. Bowen, I appreciate that. I just keeping an eye on the time. We've got several other things to keep going through. Is there any other questions from the board on this article before we move on to the next one?
I would just add a comment. I would agree with Ms. Emke. I think there could be a little bit of work done on the dollar amount and a little research on that, make an adjustment on that before going to town meeting.
Okay, great. All right, Mr. Bowen, if you want to move on to your next presentation.
Okay. All right, so the next presentation is, forgive me, let me just move into here. Okay. I want to thank everybody for kind of dealing with all that. It's a little complicated. It was complicated when I got here. So, distribution of trust funds in the absence of a quorum. This is what happened. And this is why we're in this predicament, because this is not in effect. To see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws of the town of Lunenburg by adding a new section to Chapter 12, Boards, Commissions, and Committees designated as Section 12-9, entitled Distribution of Trust Funds in the Absence of a Quorum, to authorize the Select Board on a limited and conditional basis to approve distributions from trust funds only when the Board of Commissioners of Trust Funds lacks a lawful quorum, and further to establish specific voting requirements and safeguards applicable to such action, including a unanimous vote of all 5 select board members when only one elected member of the Board of Commissioners of Trust Funds remains in office. 2, in the event of an emergency where unanimity is not possible, the temporary inclusion of that sole elected member of the Board of Commissioners of Trust Funds as a voting participant with approval by a majority of the select board members present. And 3, conflict of interest in emergency fallback procedures, including reliance on the rule of necessity when legally required. All subject to strict compliance with donor intent, the governing trust instruments, existing policies of the Board of Commissioners of Trust Funds, and all applicable laws, or take any other action thereto. Now, how does the rule of necessity apply? That's always a big question. So, it's kind of like an exigent circumstance. It's how I look at it, okay? However, it's covered under 203E, Section 807, okay? This is a temporary delegation which, pursuant to our rules under Chapter 41, Section 45, and our management capability, we are allowed to temporarily delegate under chapter 203E, section 807 for a period of time, okay? Not permanent. You're not to take over our job. You're not to do anything except for review an application, review the information that's been presented by the individual, and then make a decision, put a vote, and, you know, basically following our policy and procedure basically for issuing a grant or a loan from the trust funds that are being held by us. Now, we have there's a procedure for the delegation of trustee duties or powers that we have, okay, in administering these funds created for the benefit of the town, okay? This applies to all trust funds unless the donor's instrument provides otherwise. But it places the management of all funds with this commission unless the donor has directed otherwise. So all the things that we have is basically what we have authority over under 807. Okay? A trustee may delegate duties and powers if prudent, and must reasonably use reasonable care, skill, and caution in selecting an agent, setting the scope, terms, and periodically reviewing the agent's actions. The agent owes a duty of reasonable care, and a trustee who complies with section 807A is not liable for the agent's acts, except if a delegation submits the agent to Mass Court of Jurisdiction. Okay? That's just normal. Commission statutory role shall have the management of all trust funds given or bequeathed for the benefit of the town or its inhabitants unless the donor provides otherwise. The custody of the treasurer. The trust funds are in the custody of the treasurer and invested per section 54 of chapter 44. Or if the town had accepted 54B, they may be managed as a pool under 203C, which this is what we have done, the prudent investor rules. Now, the delegation under 807 cannot override a donor instructions or statutory role. The commission remains the managing trustee. The treasurer remains the custodial investment officer as prescribed by statute. Obviously, if we don't have a private trust company, the trust fund commission becomes the manager of that. And we have a policy put in place to be able to deal with that in the event that a board decides that they don't want to invest with Bartholomew and Company anymore. The commission may delegate discrete administrative or professional functions. This is from 807. Okay. When the commission determines delegation is prudent in the best interest of the trusts, all delegations must be in writing, specify scope, standards, duration, reporting, and provide for termination. We've done that in this request. Prior to delegating, the commission will evaluate the proposed agent's qualification and independence. Obviously, you're the select board. I think qualification fits. You were elected. Establish written terms. We have that here with the bylaw we're requesting, and implement periodic reviews to monitor compliance and performance, documenting findings in commission minutes, which means that if you have to submit that anyways to the treasurer, that's basically what the documented findings are. So each delegation instrument must identify the affected trust, describe delegated tasks, state performance standards, set reporting frequency requirements, acknowledge the agent's duty of reasonable care and submission, and include, expiration or revocation conditions, which the bylaw does comply with section 807. So temporary delegation to the select board when a quorum is lacking. My question that I pose, okay, is do we have the authority to be able to do that? If we have adopted a policy and a practice or a bylaw, will that authorize such temporary delegation? That's the question that we're asking here today. The findings under section 807, the Uniform Trust Code, allows delegation if prudent with oversight, including to another municipal body acting as an agent. The commission's statutory management under chapter 41, section 45 vests management in the commission. Any delegation to the select board must be obviously narrowly tailored, time limited, and structured to the select board acts only as an agent, and it may not supplant the commission as a managing trustee, which means you can't make any changes. All you can do is approve applications. And that's what the warrant article does. The treasurer's role is preserved. We don't have to really discuss that. We know that. She's going to approve whatever you say. She's going to back check it and make sure that it fits the donor intent. If a bylaw or formal commission policy that contemplates a quorum failure, a temporary limited delegation to the select board is compatible with state law, provided that it meets section 807's prudence and oversight standards. It respects the donor instructions, does not alter the treasurer's statutory functions. If no bylaw exists, the commission can still rely on section 807 for a narrowly defined time-limited delegation during a quorum lapse with the same safeguard. Adoption by a bylaw or formal policy is recommended for clarity. I can make a policy, but that policy could change. I'm asking for a bylaw so that it stays intact. Like I said, this board has not functioned properly for 50 years. It needs something to keep it functioning. And the way to do that is to have a bylaw. Now we're there, nobody forgets, because somebody forgot in 1941, I told you. Somebody in 1941 says, we're going to organize a trust fund commission. I'm like, no, you're already able to organize in 1913. You had one. Do you know what I mean? It just disappeared. And then in 1941, it showed up again. I have that. It's in the record. Okay. So there are required procedures for this delegation. We have to basically, obviously, there's a documentation that there's no quorum. It's time sensitive and it risks the donor intent. There's a risk to the donor's intent and the beneficiaries if it's delayed. Okay. Obviously, I just showed you this delay has caused people to lose as a result of it. So, basically that gives you an idea of 807 in a nutshell. Okay. As far as the quorum is concerned, okay, for the quorum, let me pull that up here real quick. Okay. So just so you know, that's section 807. That gives us the authority to do it. Yeah, I can create a policy, okay, and hand it to you. The problem is that if there's a bylaw, everybody's responsible for it. It solidifies the trust fund commission from not falling away again like it had, because now you have a bylaw in place that basically says this is your duty temporarily until the seats are filled, and that way the residents in town don't suffer a loss as a result of not having access to money. So just real quick, the bylaw is a continuity risk management measure. It does not transfer management or investment authority away from the commission or trust funds. It creates a narrow conditional process allowing distributions when the board of commissioners of trust funds cannot act due to a lack of quorum and the cited laws. And the State Ethics Commission's guidance on the rule of necessity for conflicts and emergencies. And that's what I mean. That's why I said is the rule of necessity is there's no conflict unless you can't change anything. You can't tell the treasurer what to do. You can't make policy. All you can do is approve applications. You're limited. And that delegation comes from us.
All right, Mr. Bowen, sorry, I'm just going to cut you off right here. I think you've gone over most of the gist, or did you still have some more points? I'm just looking at the time. We've got some more appointments
Yeah,
on the
no,
agenda.
like I said, I wanted to kind of sum everything up through 807 to give you an understanding of our delegation and powers. You've all read this. I've submitted this all to you already, right? And basically what the public needs to understand is this is to make sure that this trust fund commission stays active and continues to give the money back to the town, and the peoples whose names are on here are recognized at meetings. That we want to thank the Howard family. We want to thank we want to thank the American Legion funds, the American Legion who was once here. You know what I mean? These are people's names in perpetuity that want to be remembered. I mean, I think there was just recently a big donation that was given recently by a family at one of your meetings. And it's like they do that to be recognized. And this is why this is important, so that this can continue for the people who donated the money, and also so that the beneficiaries never lose the money. And like I said, I gave it to you in a nutshell, the authority. I've given you the document. Hopefully you all had a time to read it. This just goes over a set of parameters. 5-0 select board approval when only one elected member remains and no emergency exists. Emergency fallback is that the seat is the sole elected member as a voting member. When, like, let's say somebody has a conflict of interest on a trust fund, you have to sit out. and there's a one member, well, they don't have a quorum, they can be brought in. And if there's only one member, then they're basically an assistant to tell you this is what how it works and this is the way it goes. And that's basically the bylaw in a nutshell, is to hand you the authority to approve an application. And we've already had, just to give you an idea, we already had the application has already been basically approved by the town attorney for the application that we have, and the process that we have in place has been ratified for how the money's given out, what is considered to be somebody who's poor, what's considered to somebody who's honorable veteran, you know what I mean? That's, you know, that is deserving of the money, like, you know, no dishonorable discharges, things like that, you know, for some of these funds. And,
Okay, does anyone on the board have any questions for Mr. Bowen on this article? Nope. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Mr. Bowen, my suggestion, if you're willing to hear it, is, you know, if these do get moved forward on the warrant, would be to have a presentation, a PowerPoint or something to give on town meeting floor that is concise, that allows the people that are there to kind of understand, because I appreciate all of the effort that you put in, but it can be kind of hard to comprehend.
well, yeah, well, the
for someone that's
PowerPoint
doing it first
presentation
day.
would be for the town,
Yeah,
okay? But I sent you the documents to read it directly.
totally
So-
appreciate that. That was just my own little 2 cents there.
But to the town, yeah, you've seen my PowerPoint presentation. I've made one before. So trust me, it'll be very clear and very concise about the direction. But what I'm saying is that's why I sent it to you beforehand, because I figured I'd be limited to like time for this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we really appreciate that. Does anyone have any other further questions for Mr. Bowen? All right, great. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Bowen. We're going to move on to our next item just because we still have quite a few things to get.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
So moving forward, you hear all our information, and then at the end of hearing all the warrant articles, you guys will make a floor announcement of approval or prior to town meeting of whether or not you approve the article, because some of this requires money and I need to go to the finance committee with this.
So, Madam Chair, through you, John, I was actually going to email you after this. They're hearing moneyed articles next Thursday.
Okay.
So
I
that's when
courtesy copied Chris.
Yep. So that's when the finance committee would probably most likely hear this article.
Yeah.
The select board typically votes the warrant, and then after they vote the warrant, they make their recommendations on the same.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just wanted to just make sure that I kind of have an understanding of the process. I just want to make sure that I understand it completely when you're going to make your decisions about whether or not you approve or deny these warrant articles.
I don't think that the board has that scheduled yet, but your next stop would be next Thursday, I think it's the 12th, with the
Yeah.
finance committee.
Yeah, I'll talk to Chris. I carbon copied him on it anyway, so just in case. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate everybody's time, and I'm sorry that it's long-winded, but there's a lot of problems here we're trying to fix.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Yep. All right, moving on. We are running a bit behind here. So our next presentation is from Michael Toohill, who's the chair of the Open Space Committee, and on annual town meeting articles proposed by the committee. So I would ask if Michael is still here.
I am.
Thank you so much for your patience. I'm sorry we were running so far behind.
That's
and I will
okay.
Turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you for your time. The Lunenburg Open Space Committee right now is an ad hoc committee, which means it's as necessary as needed, and it's an ad hoc committee of the planning board. And what we're proposing to do is to codify what we do right now by putting in a bylaw that establishes the Open Space Committee as a standing committee of the town of Lunenburg. So we currently have 7 members. We have representatives from conservation, planning, the Parks Department, 3 at-large members, 3 citizen members, and we're currently in the process of getting a representative from the Agricultural Commission. So we have all the different types of open spaces represented on the committee. Our primary duties are to produce and update the open space plan, open space and recreation plan, which we've done. We actually just extended the expiration of that plan from this coming June until June of 29. The state gave us the opportunity to do an update, an interim update, and get 3 more years in the cycle. So our open space and recreation plan is now valid through June of 29. We review Chapter 61 conversions and make recommendations to the select board. We are not a regulatory board, we are an advisory board. So we give advice and help to conservation, to parks, to the select board, and to the planning board. We maintain inventory of open space in Lunenburg. That's one of our primary goals. We're in the process of updating that inventory right now. So we've got a lot of things that we do, and we don't do it on an ad hoc basis anymore. We do it on a routine basis. So what we're trying to do as a best municipal practice is to just codify what we do right now and to put in a bylaw that lays out the membership of the committee, the terms, the appointments. And the proposal is to have the select board appoint the 3 community members, and then the individual boards that have representatives, planning, conservation, parks, and agriculture, have those boards appoint their representative to the open space committee. So we have 2-year terms. I went through the duties. It's actually it's not a change at all of what we're doing right now, other than we would be a full-fledged committee of the town, a standing committee of the town of Lunenburg. So with that, keep it short and sweet, and like to answer some questions. We'd like your support, obviously, to put this on the warrant for town meeting, because it'll be a brand new bylaw. I did review this with Attorney Costa, obviously with the planning board. My committee, the open space committee, voted on this. I did go to the bylaw review committee. Chair Nizzolo is a member of that committee. I know he's not here this evening, but he was in support of this, and recommended that I come to the select board to do this presentation.
Sorry about that. I was looking for my mute button. Great. I
Okay.
really appreciate that presentation. Does anyone on the board have any questions? Oh, yeah, this seems like a pretty straightforward request here. To me, it makes sense. So I appreciate you coming forward and explaining it. Madam Town Manager, do you have any questions? Okay, great. Mr. Tuhill, really appreciate you coming forward and bringing this, and we will be adding it to our discussions as we continue to discuss warrant items.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Hey, Glenn.
All right. Moving on, we have next on our agenda is ratify the town manager's appointment of Melissa Sargent as Council on Aging Outreach Coordinator. So I will pass this off to the town manager.
Thank you. So I'm happy to announce that Melissa Sargent has accepted the position of Outreach Coordinator. She's coming to us from the town of Berlin, where she has served as COA Director for about 1.5 years. Prior to that, she served in the town of Clinton as the Outreach Coordinator, and she is excited to get back to Outreach and join our team and serve our population here.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions about this ratification and appointment? No? All right, with that, I'd be looking for a motion to ratify the town manager's appointment of Melissa Sargent as Council on Aging Outreach Coordinator.
So moved.
Second.
All right, this will be a roll call vote. Mr. McLeod?
Aye.
Ms. Emke?
Aye.
Mr. Leighton?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. All right. Jen, do you need anything else on that? Okay. And then I will pass it back to you again for your town manager's report.
Okay. Hold on just one moment. All right, so thank you, everybody. A brief report tonight. So 2 Thursdays ago, on February 19th, 2026, I presented the preliminary FY27 budget to the Finance Committee. Based on the revenues and expenditures and included in that presentation, a deficit of $3,357,213.88 was identified. Since that time, the school department has adjusted its budget, which reduces the current deficit to $150,993.89. That's based on the budget that was presented by the school department last Thursday to the Finance Committee. This week, the Finance Committee will be hearing budget presentations from Council on Aging, Library, all of general government, which is your basic town hall and most Ritter functions, excluding information technology, which presented last week, as well as general government unclassified, which is our insurance and unemployment, as well as debt service, actually, as well. Additionally, we launched a FY27 budget hub today. We know that folks are starting to hear about the challenges that we're facing with the FY27 operating budget. So we have uploaded the presentations and the links to the Finance Committee where they were presented, the preliminary budget presentation, as well as some frequently asked questions relative to Proposition 2.5. And we will continue to be adding content to that site as we progress towards town meeting. If there is an override that is presented to the public, we are building out a tool there where folks can enter in their actual address of their property, and it'll pull down their assessed value. So rather than look at the Division of Local Services calculator that's based on ranges of value, they can find the actual impact to their property. So we think that that'll be helpful when the time comes. If the time comes, rather. So lastly, staff has been working to schedule a tri-board meeting sometime next week, mostly to discuss that FY27 override. I know the select board has responded with some scheduling responses, but we are having difficulty scheduling that. So if folks have not responded to me from other boards with their availability, if they are watching, if they could do so, that would be great. But right now, it looks like we're tracking to have that tri-board meeting most likely next Tuesday, with a curtailed or shortened version of the select board meeting starting early, and tri-board most likely to follow after that. But we shall see. It originally was scheduled for next Wednesday, but we're going to have a challenge with a quorum for the select board that day. FY 2025 closeout, the Schedule A was submitted, thankfully, last week to the Division of Local Services on Thursday. Work is now underway to finalize the balance sheet so that free cash and retained earnings can be certified by DLS. I anticipate that Karen Brochu will be submitting that in the next day or two. You have not heard lately about Flat Hill Road Bridge, but I do feel it's time to bring this update forward for consideration, as it may have an impact on the town meeting warrant. So prior to construction of, prior to putting the bids out, prior to any attempted construction at the site, the town obtained through town meeting several temporary easements to facilitate work on the bridge. And through the town meeting process, those were through the eminent domain process. Those easements expire on March 7th of 2027, which is prior to the anticipated completion of the project. So we're anticipating that the project will last through June 30th of that year, so just a few months. But the cleanup and restoration work would need to occur within the easement period for the period between March 7th and June 30th. We've been working with the homeowner, or attempting to work with the homeowner, to obtain a right of entry agreement to cover that period. But if such an agreement cannot be reached, it may be necessary to include on a warrant on town meeting relative to eminent domain. In the meantime, the town has been working with its engineer to update the project bid documents, but really knowing which way we're going to go, whether we need town meeting approval on access, we have been hesitant to put out any further information until we know which way we're going there. Any questions on that Flat Hill Road Bridge update? I know we haven't talked about it in a while, but do folks understand what the issue is? Okay. All right. Recruitment updates. We still have the staff librarian position open. We've conducted a first round of interviews, and a second round is being conducted. The recreation director interviews have been conducted, and I believe we're close to putting out an offer there. Special assistant to the assessor, which is a contracted position. We do need to talk about that a little bit operationally on our side, but we do have some applicants for that position, and the dietary aid position is open. We do have one additional vacancy to boards, committees, and commissions. It'll be on your next resignation on your next agenda, but we have received a resignation from the Conservation Commission. So there is an additional vacancy there, and we have one less vacancy after tonight on the Sewer Commission.
All right, does anyone have any questions for the town manager? All right, thanks, Jen. I appreciate your report as always. Okay, moving on to new business. We have a vote on in-person early voting for local elections, which is requested by the Board of Registrars of Voters. So there is the request in our drive for this. This is something that we usually do every year. So their recommendation would be not to hold in-person voting, early voting for local elections. Does anyone have any questions on this item? No? Okay, if so, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the recommendation. I'm sorry, I just lost my place here. Looking for a motion in accordance with the recommendation of the Board of Registrars to not hold the in-person early voting for local elections.
So moved.
Second.
All right, this will be a roll call vote. Mr. McLeod?
Aye.
Ms. Emke?
Aye.
Mr. Leighton?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. So that passes unanimously.
And Madam Chair, there's one second part of that request.
Oh, sure, sorry.
That's okay. I was just noticing it now that so it says, in addition, be advised that the acts of 2022 require that early vote by mail is mandatory for local elections unless the select board hold a public hearing not later than April 1st, 2026, and vote to opt out of early vote by mail. They are recommending that we opt out of that, but we would have to calendar that as a public hearing. If folks are interested in taking that vote, we can calendar that for perhaps the March 17th meeting.
Sure, I have no problem with that. Anyone else have any objections?
No, can I just ask, so does that mean there would be no early voting by mail allowed?
It says we are recommending the opt-out option as voters will be able to request a ballot online or come into the office and vote during regular business hours.
So this is for local elections only, correct?
Local
This is
elections only.
The
Yeah.
upcoming
The
annual.
upcoming annual, which
Yeah.
I don't
We can
think
certainly
the-
have the Board of Registrars present to answer any questions if we want to calendar this for a public hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're gonna have a public hearing, it would be good to at least have, you know, someone if they're able to. All right. Anything else on that item?
Mm.
Okay, next item in new business is to authorize the MRPC to utilize $10,000 of DLTA funds to apply for a planning assistant grant as part of the EOC One Stop program to update the town's housing production plan. And I'm going to continue to just pass this back to you, Jen.
Yes, so thank you, Madam Chair. You may recall that Stephen Wallace was before you recently asking for two funding asks for MRPC. The first, they have stated that they are going to recommend to the decision makers, the board, and that's the remapping. This project, in response of updating the housing production plan, they said, rather than us update the housing production plan, what we'd like to do is take that $10,000 of direct local technical assistance and assist the town by drafting a full planning assistant grant to do the same work through the state. So I read that to mean that it's more work than they were able to do with DLT funding, and they're suggesting that they use their resources to help us apply for a larger funding through the One Stop program. I'm in support of this, but it does require a vote of the select board.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think anything we can do to have outside sources help us, you know, fund or look for additional funds is always a great thing. Does anyone have any questions? Nope. Okay. With that, I would be looking for a motion to authorize the MRPC to utilize the $10,000 of DLTA funds as listed in the agenda. Can I do that?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. McLeod?
Aye.
Ms. Emke?
Aye.
And Mr. Leighton?
Hi.
And an aye for myself. Okay. Moving on to old business. Sorry, computer's freezing. First item is discuss warrant articles on the 2026 annual town meeting. So the town manager dropped in our folder. I think we're going to start with the standing articles.
Yes.
So if you guys, want to pull that up, we can look at it. And then I will pass it off to the town manager to go through.
Thank you. And I cannot share because I'm hosting. So if anybody wants to share, that's fine. If not, I'm happy to talk through these. This is just the standard articles. Some of these are finalized because the details come in through the motions. Some of them are highlighted in yellow where you see that something could change or will be changing. So first article is to hear reports of officers and committees of the town. The second article is to borrow in anticipation of revenue, and that essentially gives the town the authorization, which is why it requires a 2/3 vote, that if we should have a revenue flow issue, a cash flow issue, the town is authorized to go out and borrow what's called a revenue anticipation note through the treasurer. It's a fail-safe article. Similarly, the next article is to expend funds in advance of Chapter 90 reimbursement. It's essentially the same process here, that we can spend money that we know is coming in through Chapter 90. Revolving funds, thank you, Brian. This next article,
beat me to it. I was trying to do the same thing.
This next article for revolving funds sets the spending limit of each of the revolving funds. Those spending limits will be detailed in the motions. We're almost there, I think, for you to catch up. All right. Next is authorization to pay expenses from a prior fiscal year. As this is the annual town meeting and not the special, this requires a 4/5 vote. We do not have any bills of a prior fiscal year that we are aware of at this point. The next article is adjustments to the FY26 budget. Again, the details of any adjustments made will be in the motion of this article. So the article itself is done, but I'm not aware of, at this point, of any FY26 budget adjustments. FY26 closeouts. Right now, the only thing that I have kind of slated in here is potential for snow and ice deficit. Of course, we're not going to know what our snow and ice deficit is for some time, as this weather will not let up. But there's two ways that we can fund the snow and ice deficit, and that's either transferring within the fiscal year from available funds or by closing out that deficit with free cash. The first does not require a town meeting vote. The latter, closing it out with free cash, does. So that article is here as a placeholder should that be the route that we take. FY27 capital program. This is the article that carries the capital program. The details, again, are through the motion. The summary will change that's provided to the residents, but the language of the article itself would not here. The next is the FY27 omnibus budget. I want to stick here for a moment. So this would be the balance budget that is not override dependent. Right now, we don't have any specific override articles that have been discussed. So this article here is for the balanced budget. I think we should talk about that after I finish going through these for next steps. Salary administrative plan adjustments for FY27. This is the COLA for SAP employees. Right now, I'm looking at a 3%. Julie is the assistant town manager, HR director, is doing some analysis on that, but that's what I'm looking at right now. The next article is to appropriate free cash to the OPEB trust fund. The town has a policy that we appropriate a certain percentage of our available free cash to the OPEB trust fund, and that's what will be accomplished through this action. Next is appropriating to the compensated absences fund. This is a fund that we started last year to pay for unforeseen, essentially when an employee departs, unforeseen liabilities when you weren't expecting perhaps somebody to leave with a large vacation buyout that we didn't budget. It's a source to cover that. We put $10,000 in last year, looking to put in another $10,000 this year. This is the next article, Solid Waste Disposal Program Enterprise Fund. This is the authorization to fund the solid waste program, which is an enterprise. Similarly, the water enterprise program, we're going to need to adjust the number in the water enterprise. That's obviously $45,000, does not cover it, as you are well aware from the fall special town meeting. And that is the slate of the standing articles. I do know that one additional cemetery article came in today. I have not even read it yet. And I think there is also one additional, I don't think we talked about sewer bylaw amendment at the last meeting. We have received an article relative to the sewer bylaws. Which looks like a pretty basic language change.
Okay. Is that in our folder too?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
As I'm looking in that folder, I see above it mosquito control. We've talked at previous meeting about that mosquito control. Central Mass Mosquito Control Project will be coming to the next meeting of the select board to discuss the program. And I've given them a bunch of questions, which they've already answered most of. But if folks do have questions for them, in addition to those that you already gave me at the last meeting, I'm happy to share those.
Okay. Before we talk about budget items on that warrant article, does anyone have any questions about any of the other warrant items we just went through?
I was just looking earlier today at the mosquito language for the article. I just think it needed some edits there.
I haven't even looked at it, so that was
Okay.
drafted. Yeah.
That's my guess. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right, Madam Town Manager, what did you want to discuss? You said you wanted to after we went over this about the budget.
Yeah, so I think that you know, the clock is starting to run on some decision making here. And so I wanted to discuss, I know we had talked about there's a tri-board meeting that we're trying to schedule next week. Ultimately, though, the override decision, if there is to be one, is going to be borne by this board and what that looks like. And so I do want to be mindful of timing. And in looking at some of the timing, just so folks are aware, March 16th is the last day for folks other than the select board to insert subjects to the warrant. That I did confirm with Attorney Costa earlier today. The select board is not bound by that date. And even if it was, could arguably submit something that said an override question or questions, very vague. But I think that the reality is that we need to have a vote by a certain point because we need to get that warrant in the mail. So we have a little bit of time, but we don't have a ton of time. And I know the chair is also traveling next week. And so just trying to map out some of how are we really going to take the next steps here.
Right, since we don't have an article, I'm hesitant to make recommendations without the chair being here.
I'm
I
just
am
talking
happy-
about planning.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to hear that Attorney Costa said that we do have that little bit of leeway, because I believe the chair, Mr. Lozzola, will be back on the 17th. Is that right?
Yes.
After the close of for everyone else to submit on the warrant. I mean, in my opinion, I would assume we're submitting a warrant article for an override, whether we recommend to approve or not, but all the conversations, it seems silly, I guess, I don't know how to say that nicely, that we wouldn't be with all the tri-board conversations, and then, you know, at least bringing it to the floor. I would assume we're submitting an article. I don't know how other members feel about that.
Yeah,
Not
I
saying-
think,
I'm not looking for approval or not, I just would assume we're bringing an article forward.
yeah, I think we're headed in that direction. The question is, what's that number and what does the article actually look like? You know, people have mentioned tiered, all in one, whatever. Jen, there's one more date though. So, because I remember this from 2 years ago. Assuming there is an override article on the warrant, the dollar amount in that article needs to match the amount on the ballot in order to be voted on at the scheduled annual town election, not to hold a special election. So that cutoff date is April something.
So it's 35 days prior to the annual town election, which I believe is April 11th. Just give me a second.
While I'm asking for that drop dead date, I don't necessarily want to wait till the last minute, but
No, I agree.
I want to know what that last date is, what the deadline is.
I would say I do share your concerns, Jen, you know, that we're getting down to the wire here. So I am hopeful that we can have that tri-board meeting next week.
Me too.
Yeah, I think having a tri-board discussion is really important because we've now seen town manager preliminary budget, we've seen the school. I know some
It is
things.
April 11th.
Oh,
Sorry.
April 11th, okay. We've already seen some things change, some things are still up in the air with CBAs and everything could have impact on the budget. So now I think we need to take that deeper dive to arrive at a number.
And if I could just add a little finer point to the date.
Mhm.
So while April 11th is the final date to vote for placement on the election warrant, April 8th is the final day for me to get things to the printer. That gives me the minimum of 6 days for turnaround from the printer. So anything relative to override that would be contained within that booklet. So if that number was going to be in the booklet, we would actually need it earlier.
Yeah.
So the booklet goes to the printer no later than April 8th. Your last regularly scheduled meeting of the select board prior to that would be April 7th. But again, that's awful tight.
That's not, I don't think we should shoot for that. I mean, I'm glad we know it, but that's just, yeah. That's a quick turnaround. All right. Does anyone have anything else on this that they want to talk about tonight?
I think I would just add that I agree with what Ms. Moore and Ms. Emke had stated, that there will be a need for an override to cover the expenses, because we can't do this in the budget for the school budget and the fire, adding a fourth shift.
Yeah, and that was one of my questions, as we've consistently said, the possible override. I was wondering when it becomes, it sounded like, despite using the word possible, it seems like it's a foregone conclusion. So I suspect maybe, is it after the tri-board meeting?
It's your vote.
Right.
It's whenever this body calendars it and votes it.
So I'm hoping we have the tri-board meeting next week, and then maybe it's the following week that we at least really start talking about numbers and what it would look like on our end.
I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
And then we might need to we might need to schedule another meeting before maybe the last week of March to take the vote. I'm just kind of talking out loud right now. I know we're at our tight time schedule, especially looking at when Caesar returns. Because is the 17th our last meeting of the month?
That's our last regularly scheduled meeting. That's correct. The other kind of element here is that we haven't had a regular meeting since I presented my preliminary budget. I know last year when I presented my preliminary budget, there was some pretty visceral feedback. I can see Member Emke smirking about the payment management plan as we speak. So I don't know if folks have had an opportunity to really look at that and if whether or not we want to even think about scheduling some budget only workshops, you know, for the select board to work on the budget with me about priorities. It is the town manager's budget that goes to town meeting. However, the practical reality of that is that this needs to be a joint effort.
Yeah, I'd be open for a workshop. I think there could be value in that.
Yeah, I agree. Especially, I think, you know, we are going to be presenting a balanced budget number. So at some point we have to talk about that too. You know, what is that going to look like? That's going to be major service cuts townwide. I don't know when we have those conversations, but we've got to have them. So I don't see us being able to accomplish that in only 2 meetings left in March.
No way.
I agree.
So when Jen, do you think what would work for you? Because you're doing the legwork here, and you know what would
I think that folks I think we're gonna have to be flexible on days, right? I think we even saw, for those that aren't aware in the public that are watching this, as we're talking about calendaring the tri-board meeting, some pretty unpopular options of Friday night and Saturday morning were put out to folks. So I think at this point, what would be helpful is if I could get from the select board what are absolute no dates that you could not meet. And that if some of that is because you are on another board, perhaps, and that there's a conflict, depending on whether there's a quorum and the importance of that matter, you know, whether or not that's movable for you. But I think we're gonna have to just really dial in over the month of it feels like it's a long time. We've got almost a full month, but it's not.
No, it's not a long time at all. Because realistically, we're not having anything this week. We don't have time to agenda something or put anything together. Then we're into next week. We already know of all of the hearings and the other meetings we have. So we're looking at 2 weeks in March, if that. Yeah. So
I think
it's
if
a good idea
folks-
if we all send our blackout dates to you.
Yep.
And I know Caesar is in Africa, but I can see if I can get a hold of him and see if he can do the same thing.
Well, we know he's blacked out for the next week.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on anything town meeting related? Warrant article related? All right.
Actually,
Oh,
the
go ahead.
logistics of, remember 2 years ago, we were worried about capacity and we had set up an overflow room and everything for town meeting. Do you remember that?
That would have been before me.
Maybe it was the
Yeah, they
school
set up the
override here,
gym.
FY 25. Yeah.
Overflow was in the gym. I think that
I
might
think
be
we
a good idea
didn't
to
need
do
it
that.
in the end, but
Just
there
in
was
case.
concern. And I don't know if that's something we want to set up for this time.
Yeah, I think that with overflow rooms, we should start to get a sense as the time goes on what the turnout is gonna likely be if there's a pretty large capacity in the auditorium. But if it's seeming like there's a lot of folks who are gonna turn out, we'll certainly set that up with the deputy moderator and in the next room and all that.
We set it up.
Borrow clickers and
Yeah. So it was set up before we, in the end, didn't need it, but hopefully there's a roadmap of how to do that.
Yeah, it's usually the tech people that have the most trouble with that. Laying down cable and duct taping wiring to the floor. But
And having enough clickers.
having enough clickers. Yep. So towns borrow clickers all the time. I know Holden had a huge town meeting last night with an overflow room. So we'll make it work.
Okay, anything else on the warrant articles, town meeting? Okay. Next on our agenda is to review the FY 26 Select Board and Town Manager goals and objectives. I don't believe we had anything pressing on this, so I would suggest that we pass this over until the chair returns, unless anyone had anything they wanted to say about this item in particular.
We reviewed them, I thought, pretty thoroughly a couple meetings ago.
That's kind of what I thought we
Yeah,
were,
okay.
we're at. The town
just
manager
didn't vote.
spoke. Yeah.
Oh, we
so
have to vote?
Well, you changed stuff and you didn't vote. That's
Oh,
all.
okay.
So whether or not you want to be formal or not,
Yeah. So I
we
think
went
I
to
would
update and we
prefer-
realized it wasn't a vote.
Just
Okay.
because there are the goals for, the town manager and the, our board, I would prefer to wait until we have a full board to take a vote if we're gonna do that.
I agree.
Unless there's something pressing that we need to do, I think that we should wait. All right. Discussion and approval of the appointment policy. I do know, Brian, I'm not sure if you had a chance to watch our last meeting, but we all had basically decided we were ready to move forward, but we weren't gonna take the vote yet. So we wanted to discuss with you any of those final changes. Caesar did say he was comfortable with us taking the vote without him tonight. So I didn't know if anyone had any questions or thoughts, or if we were ready to approve this policy.
I'm ready.
Anybody else have any remaining questions or thoughts?
Nope.
Okay, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the appointment policy as presented and discussed at last week's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this will be a roll call vote. Glenn?
I
Renee?
Aye.
Aye. Oop, aye.
And an aye for myself. You can tell I'm getting tired because I've switched to first names. But that has passed. All right, I do not believe we have any minutes that are ready for this week.
There was something in our folder.
There was, but
Is
we had
that-
some adjustments that have to get made, so those
Okay.
ones are not quite ready yet.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll have some for next week. Do we have any warrants? Or anything we need to talk about? No, okay. Any action items? Okay, committee reports. I do have one quick committee report from the 925 Mass Ave Working Group. We have begun to meet, and our town planner, Stephen Wallace, is working with EPA on some outstanding questions, and we will be reconvening to discuss next steps and moving forward. So at least we are making some progress on that. So that is my quick report. And Glenn, did you have any reports tonight?
Nothing stand out. Planning board was canceled. Of course, we heard from Open Space, Library Board of Trustees this past Thursday, or nothing to report. And again, a recent MPO meeting, but nothing of note to pass along.
Okay, thanks. Renee?
School committee presented to FinCom last week, as did IT present their budget. And was it facilities? I forget already. Tomorrow, no, not tomorrow, Thursday is the Stormwater Task Force information session at 7:15 in the library, I think. So I would encourage folks to attend to that. There was actually a meeting tonight to finalize a presentation that Weston Sampson will be giving. And I believe that's it.
Okay, Brian?
The Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee is meeting Monday. The school committee met on February 25th. They have an upcoming STEM night on March 19th, and then they had their FY27 budget hearing, presented a needs-based restoration budget totaling approximately $980,000. Also, the Board of Assessors met on the same night. And they reviewed 27 pending abatement applications. They had 12 completed so far. They voted to recommend that the select board not exercise its right of first refusal on 1083 Northfield Road under Chapter 61. And that was it.
Great, thank you. Our upcoming meetings, we rescheduled tonight's, pending the posting, but we rescheduled tonight's executive session to Monday, the 9th at 8 p.m. after the town caucus. So that will give a little plug for if anyone is interested in running for any of our open seats. Town caucus is Monday at 7 p.m. at the high school. Is that correct? Okay, great. And then we'll be meeting on the 10th, either at 6 or 7, depending on whether we can convene the tri-board meeting on that day. And then we'll be meeting on the 17th at least, and then pending, as we discussed earlier in the night, some extra meetings. Is there any public comment from the public? I'm not seeing any hands. Is there any public comment from the town manager? And is there any public comment from the board?
I just want to reiterate the need to, the timing. We thought, we started this budget process early with the tri-board over the summer. And so in some respects, we're ahead of last year, but not that much. It's still crunch time. Things are moving quickly. So to those listening, please, please, please pay attention as best you can. And for, particularly tri-board members, please keep an eye on your email and respond to the town manager as we try to squeeze in meetings and things. It's going to be a busy month.
Yeah, Renee, I would
For
echo
sure.
that point. We're really trying to do this collaboratively. Ultimately, if we, I feel like we've done so much work as a tri-board that it would do us a disservice for us as a select board to be making these decisions without having a tri-board meeting. But at a certain point, we might have to make decisions. So I am hoping that we can convene.
And I really want public engagement. I really want to hear from the public what's important.
Yeah, just to add on top of that too, on March 2nd, the fire chief did present the fourth shift proposal too. And that YouTube is now posted too on Facebook and on the YouTube public access cable. So people should definitely watch that as well.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brian. Does anyone else have any other comments? All right. With that, I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:28 p.m.
Second.
This will be a roll call vote. Glenn?
Aye.
Renee?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. We are adjourned. Thank you all so much.
Right.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you,
Good night.
everybody.
Okay.
Good
Bye.
night.
Thank you.
Good job.